Good morning and welcome to the next episode of the solo stream. I'm your host, Ryan. Jonathan and I streamed yesterday. I forgot about our stream yesterday morning, as is tradition with any of the stuff that we do with the AV experience, but we're here now. And this stream is going to be about video processors and why they exist, what they do. Because I think there's always a unknown on, is a video processor right for me? Is it worth it? So I just wanted to shed some light. I was how can I put this? A non-believer in the beginning of things. And I'm gonna be, and this is gonna be kind of hard to emphasize, but I think I can do it. Um, I'm gonna be non-biased here. I do work for MadVR. I do contract work for them. I run support and training for MadVR as a company. Uh, but just know that I try and be as unbiased as possible and put my personal interactions and dealings aside. And frankly, I would not work for a company that I didn't believe in. Like, if I thought it was taking advantage of the customer, ethically, I cannot let myself do it. It would be a struggle internally, and I would be at war with myself. So I wouldn't be able to do it. So me working for them should say that, hey, I believe in what they're doing. But a video processor, in a simple aspect, allows you to augment the software side of your display. A video processor is not going to fix hardware shortcomings. It's not magically going to give you better native contrast or intra-scene contrast or any of that. It may improve the contrast in a particular scene, right, by maximizing the distance that you may lose due to the software side of things. But it cannot improve the hardware limitations of a piece of equipment. That is not possible. And something that comes up a lot with dealers that I interact with, more than you may be surprised, is, well, I thought MadVR or the competitor could enhance our zoom, right? Could allow me to fill the screen. And unfortunately, I have to break it to them and say, well, I'm limited by the physical zoom of the projector. I can't give you more zoom, right? Software is not a fix for a hardware limitation. I can augment it and make it better, the software part of it, but I can't make the hardware part better. You're stuck with that. So MadVR and Lumigen are they're only as good as the equipment they're attached to. That is the limitation. Now, they can do things like making old 1080p projectors or things like that, as long as they support HDCP 2.2. I don't know what the limitations are with Lumigen. I know that's a limitation with MadVR. As long as that limitation is allowed, they can feed them HDR content and allow them to process it, because Envy encapsulates HDR data, PEQ data, inside of a traditional gamma function. That's how it communicates to a projector. Now, we can send it normal PEQs, but that's, in a simple approach, how we get around a lot of displays' own tone mapping, because not a lot of displays allow you to disable their tone mapping. So if you keep it in SDR, you disable, in a way, the display's HDR tone mapping and allow a video processor like MadVR or Lumigen to be able to augment that. So where was I going with that? SDR. And it allows displays that would not normally be able to do HDR, or, say, as an example, I'm not picking on anybody or meaning to, early JVCs or Epsons, or really any of the early projectors. We might have a problem. Is there a problem? This is concerning. Oh, maybe he's talking to Derek. Okay. Anyway, back on the topic. And allow those displays to play HDR in a very well thought out, meticulous fashion. So as long as the display is able to handle HDCP, you can send it an HDR signal. Now, you're still going to be limited by the brightness and the color space and all of that stuff, but you can augment, again, the software side of things, which is very important. right? That is what something like Mad VR allows you to do. And most people know Mad VR as a HDR platform, right? How can we make the image better? And it does a lot of that. It in a simplistic term or a simplistic approach, what I tell people is they provide a bunch of tools, right? So they give you a toolbox and then you have the tools to create a video experience that is for you, whether that be changing how the HDR works, changing how the sharpening works, changing how the motion interpolation is handled, fixing geometry correction issues, um, containing content into specific regions. And actually, you know what? Let's do this. This is impromptu, but let me actually pull this up so you guys can see. That would make this a lot easier. Give me one moment. Where am I going? Let's go here. And I should be able to share this screen so you guys can see exactly what I'm talking to. This is kind of going to be like an impromptu training. All right. Where is mine? There it is. Not going to have an image on the screen, but you guys we can talk about the settings and what they do. I don't know if we've ever done something like this. And you know what? I'm just going to turn the whole theater on. Why not? Let me see if I can wake up the K-scape. Theater, wake up. Okay, should be waking up. There we go. So now let's share this window, this share. Okay, look at that. You guys can see the Mad VR. So I'm remoted into the Mad VR, and you guys can now see what it sees. Let's go just back to the movie wall. Let's go here. And I don't want that. Stop that. There we go. Movie wall. Come on. You can do it. There we go. All right, so we're at a movie wall. Sorry, it's a little slow. The team viewer takes a minute to respond, but you guys can now see what I see. So video processors allow you to do things like this. You can come in here, and I'm not going to take you through the entire setup process, but you can come in here and we can go to the assistant. And from here, I can tell Envy where my screen exists in physical space. So you would take these anchor points and you would put them in the physical corners of the screen. So I'm zooming the projector to cover my screen. Overscan is okay. You want to minimize the overscan because any type of overscan is light loss. And then you're going to put these anchor points into the corners of the screen. Again, minimizing overscan in order to minimize light loss. It's not going to be perfect, but getting it as close as possible. Then, once this is done, Envy is going to take all content and it is going to maximize it into this space. And I can show you that in real time. So if we do really any content, so if I turn on, let's just do, sure, Pirates of the Caribbean. I don't know what its aspect ratio is. 240. Okay. Normally, if I'm on a projector, I'd have to deal with zoom. But if I just go down to play scene and so we're getting away from the intro. Let's just play this. So this is going to play, and I was zoomed previously to 16:9 or roundabouts. It's not exactly 16:9, but you get the idea. So I am now fitting the screen. And you may say, well, this is not 240. And it's not 240 because Envy is actually doing nonlinear stretch. And this is what your content actually looks like. So you can see black bars, the top and bottom. I've got a black bar here, and I've got a black bar here. And Envy, without zoom, without shift made this fit, and then layered on nonlinear stretch to make the image bigger. So you can see that my black bars went from here to there. They got a lot smaller. Now I can make these however I want. I could make them even smaller by increasing crop. Look, I'm getting rid of more of the black bars. I could increase stretch. So let's put this down. I could come down here and I could increase stretch. Center stretch, that is. Let's put that back to 6. I could come down here, increase horizontal stretch and make it bigger. So you have all of these tools in order to augment your existing video experience. Removing zoom and shift is a big part of that. Enlarging the image is a big part of that. So let's get rid of this. Let me back out of this content. We're going to get some strikes for having content up, but it is what it is. That's a big part of what we do. What video processors allow you to do is less stress in the video experience. Now, as it resyncs, the other part of this, talking about geometry correction, is, or screen boundaries, the geometry correction. And I have a little bit of this. You can see in the top left corner that there is a little bit of a curve. And that's because I don't have perfect geometry in my room. So geometry correction allows me to offset the bad geometry in the room and make it ideally so I either notice it less or don't notice it at all. And this is not keystoning. I am warping the image as it comes out of the projector so that when it reflects off the screen back to me, it looks correct. I can deal with curved screens. I can deal with angled screens. I can deal with projectors in corners, too high, too low. All of that stuff, you got a tool to deal with it. So again, I'm going to say this multiple times. Video processors are a toolbox that allows you to figure out, or not really figure out, but augment your own experience. How can I fix things in the room? It is a tool. We talk about this all the time with speakers. They are a tool to get around shortcomings that exist in a room. That's what they're doing. Video processors do a lot of the same thing. They allow you to get around a shortcoming or make things easier to use, or create and augment a video experience that is for you. So I can change, if I wanted to, the HDR of the content. I can increase the look, making it hotter, emphasize the brightness with potential that I'm going to clip the brights, right? I'm going to clip the brights, but maybe I like brightness. So I'm emphasizing that. I can boost the brightness parts of an image, only the parts that are being tone mapped. So I have control over specific aspects. I'm not blanket applying a brightness. So I'm leaving the darks intact and I'm increasing brightness of the top end. I can recover things that are lost due to, I'm going to call it compression. It's really not compression, but things that are lost due to compression in tone mapping that are blended together where you don't see the details. A great example of this, and it's not a lot of times one that people want, but film grain is something that tone mapping has a tendency to get rid of. And that's why on really bright images, you can typically see tone mapping more. You can see film grain more because it's being tone mapped theoretically less, right? Because if a display is able to get to a brightness level, it doesn't need the same level of tone mapping because it's able to get to those peak highlights. You can get to those absolute values that PEQ represents. And so you're not losing those minute details due to it. Contrast recovery allows you to maintain the distance between the darks and the lights instead of smashing them together and making them more gray. You're able to, if you want to, boost detail in the low visual areas where maybe you're running into crush, and we can bring up the black floor so that you can maybe see a little bit of detail. You have control over the saturations for your global and minute fine detail stuff. You are in control is what this stuff does. Question for macro proxy is, How do you know if Envy is throttling features definitively? So the easiest way to do that is if you go to remote control configuration, and I need to see if this is bound. Toggle debug OSD. So this is yellow circle. You can bring up the debug OSD and you can actually see what algorithms Envy is running. Algos. It's been a while since I've been in here, so let me find it. This is SDR, so it may not have a bunch of them. Let me turn this content back on. Hold on. Let's turn this back on. There we go. So let's pause this. Pause. So algos, here you go. So you got chroma, motion interpolation, HDR. These are the algorithms that it's currently running. So if these are coming in and out, it's throttling. It's not going to tell you what it's doing, but you can see what algorithms are currently being run and what it's doing. You can see the rendering. You can see all of this information. It's in the debug menu. But if the only time it's really, if you're on an extreme, a newer extreme that it's going to be throttling is coupling motion interpolation, high levels of motion interpolation with things like contrast and highlight recoveries is when it's really going to be doing it. Otherwise, you should be okay. But it's going to prioritize, and rightfully so, any type of algorithm that is running all the time. So your geometry correction, your motion interpolation, if those turn on and off, you're going to notice. So it throttles other algorithms in an idea to not be noticed. Is it capable of doing auto calibration? No, it's not capable of auto calibration. It's very capable of professional calibration with a professional calibrator, but it's not going to calibrate your display automatically. You still need, a Jetty, a Klein, a color research, software like Color Space or Calman to be able to do this. Now, it does support a 256 point cubed LUT, which is over 8 million points. It's enormous. You would never do that, but it interpolates out. So it's hugely capable, and it's one of the most capable calibration platforms on the market. So you do have a lot of function, but it won't do things automatically. No. So if you put an NV in, your colors aren't magically going to be accurate. That's not true. All right. So let's go back. These are good questions. This is why I'm doing it, because there's a lot of questions and unknowns about video processors, and I think it's important to shed some light on them. So macro, good question. Sports fan, good question. Derek, is there any thoughts on making optimized NLS per movie to minimize the noticeable effects based on the movie content? Maybe it's too dynamic. Envy doesn't know what the content is. So it's possible that in the future you may be able to leverage in AI. I don't know what we're going to be doing in the future with that. As of right now, I would not get too hung up on NLS and noticing distortion. If you're actively looking for it, you're going to find it. You've got to take yourself out of that mindset and get to a point where you're enjoying content. Even if I notice distortion, the immersion that I gain from making things bigger far outweighs the stretch distortion that NLS creates. I cannot go back. And I think people need to be okay with living with it for a while and trying to break the habit. Remember how you're taking in content, whatever it may be, audio, video. If you watch content or listen to content for a long time the same way, that is the status quo. And you've got to give yourself time to be okay with a new status quo or be okay with something different. If it is starkly different, you are going to notice immediately. And you're probably not going to like it because it goes against what you're used to. This is true in multiple facets of life, not just video processors and audio processors. You've got to give yourself time to adapt. And once you adapt, you can figure out, do I still like it? Do I not? Is this my new status quo? Try and take it away and figure that out. And you don't even need to recover the entire black bar. You are in full control over how much or what you're doing to recover, however you want to do it. That's the beauty of these video processors, things like Envy, is you are in control. You can do whatever you want. There are recommendations, but that does not mean that they need to be followed. You can handle it however you want to do it. Do you ever mismatch gamma settings for Envy to the projector? No, I do not do that. I will match it and boost it. Like if I'm changing the gamma in the projector, I'll raise it and then raise it at Envy. It needs to be matched so that the communication with Envy to the projector is correct. If you like a brighter or darker scene, you need to augment that in other ways, either through contrast, through saturation, by lowering or raising the gamma in both platforms together. But there's a caveat here. The gamma that the projector is set to, or any display is set to, does not mean that that is the gamma that that display is actually at, calibrated. It may say it's at 2.4 as an example, but it's actually at 2.6, right? So just because it says it's that way does not mean that it's measuring that way. So it's entirely possible that you are preferring it by changing it and mismatching it because it's actually matching better than it was before. Just to throw that out there. Can you show the difference between motion AI and not? That is really difficult to show through remote. If you guys want to really see this stuff in action, you need to come to MWave. We show this stuff at MWave. I can't show it here because we're going to have stutter. It's not going to be smooth. It's not going to show you what it looks like in real life. You've got to see it in person, unfortunately, Steven. I wish there was a way for me to do that, but there's not. There is a huge difference. Whether you like it or not, I don't know. And what he's talking about, guys, is Envy has the ability to use AI to motion interpolate content. I can interpolate up to 120p. So I can create 4 new frames if I'm using Insane Plus on 24p content, and it looks buttery smooth. It is amazing how perceptually you see all of this detail come back because the brain is blurring things. It's not a lot of times in the content unless there is motion blur, but the brain does some funny things when it's looking at content. It doesn't mean that one way is right or wrong. It just gives you, again, you get the choice. You get the choice to decide, how do I want this to play out? How do I want my video experience to be? That's what Envy and its competitors are allowing you to do. And if you want that, I think it's something that you should look into. They're expensive, but the cool thing about them is that they outlive displays. So you change the display, still got a video processor, it's still there. This isn't a sales pitch. I don't care if you get one or not. I think they're amazing, and I can't live with one in my theater now. Live without one now. There's no going back. They are a dangerous thing to see because once you see, there's no unseeing. But doesn't mean that they're necessarily a necessity. So I'm going to get off this soapbox because I don't want to make this seem like a sales pitch. It's absolutely not. That was not my intent. There's a lot more to talk about with this, but I don't want to make this a dedicated training. I just kind of wanted to give a little bit of insight into what video processors can do. There's a lot of misunderstanding. Are they necessary? So on and so forth. So if you guys have any questions, I'm happy to answer them, whether they're about video processors or not. There's been some, go back and see if there's anything, other questions. So Home Theater Denmark says, I researched the distance on the wall versus baffle wall speaker on the silver ticket. And I think Denmark is talking about a question he posed to Jonathan and I yesterday. On Silver Ticket, it said 1 inch, 2.5 centimeters. I did add black masking behind, so I measured it and it was 3 centimeters, so I'm good, I assume. Uh, is this a perforated screen or is this woven? Typically with woven, you're able to get much closer, and I'm assuming that's what you have. Perforated, you'd want it ideally further away because you need to provide time for the waveform to properly manifest before it hits the screen material. Allow the waveform to properly form before it hits the screen material so that it can get through it with less attenuation. So I'm assuming, given the distance that you're talking about woven, because that's pretty close. But let's see, just checking on other thing. If you guys have questions about anything, I'm happy to take them. Otherwise, it's going to be a short stream and we can come back next week. I think I'm at the place in life where I think I just set and forget it. So this is where a lot of people should be. And what I have found, personal experience, is that a lot of people want to change things because they're constantly in a pursuit of what could be better. I have gotten to a point that I recognize my system is and you don't need a system like the Mad VR Experience Center to get to this, right? You can get to this point subconsciously using all different kinds of stuff. This is just what's allowed me to get here. It didn't necessarily need to get to this point. So don't think you need to have a Mad VR Experience Center to get to this point. But I now sit and just enjoy content. I am not chasing volumes. I'm not chasing bass boosts. I'm not doing anything. I set it, I hit play, and it goes. I don't worry about, could this be better? I know subconsciously doesn't get better than this. It is good enough. And because of that, I am fully immersed in the content. I am taken in, encapsulated in the story. I'm not sitting there, hey, could this have been more bass? Could this have been this way? Could I have done this or this? I don't even think about that anymore. It's gone. And it is amazingly freeing to be in that space. You could do this with a sound bar. It's just being confident with what you got and knowing how you have it set up is as good as it's going to get instead of chasing these percentage points. Could it theoretically be better? Sure. Are you happy with the result? That's what matters. And this can happen at any level. Derek says, do you think some of the newer projectors with their advances in scaling, DTM, and autofocusing, do you think that they'll push the processor companies to develop newer technologies? Yeah, I think competition's really important. Now, a lot of what they're doing is still eclipsed by the video processor companies, more so than you would think. The demos that we do with Mad VR are side-by-side comparisons. I mean, we show this side by side, and it is stark between a display's capability and the video processors. It's not close in a lot of ways. Um, and the other thing is there's granularity involved. A lot of the projectors and displays don't allow for the granularity that something like NB is going to allow you to have. So you got to figure out what is good enough. Again, do you want full control over the system? Do you want to know what you're getting is as good as it's going to get? Or are you happy with where you're at? There's no right or wrong answer. You've just got to answer it for yourself and be confident in that answer. That's what's important. Knowing thyself and being able to put equipment in that augments that. Displays are getting better. And I think that's important for the industry. I mean, look at what the Valerian Max is. The Valerian Max for the price point is doing a lot. And it's really important that industries like AV, really any industry, have things like the Valerian Max that exist because it forces other companies, other vendors, other manufacturers to innovate if they want to stay ahead of the game. If they don't innovate and they stagnate, they're going to get left behind. So it forces innovation. The competition should be welcomed because it benefits the consumer. It forces things ahead. That innovation is what brings new things to the market, and that's important. Competition needs to be had. I won't turn this political, but it's why monopolies are a problem. When you got these monopolies, the interest stops becoming in what is in the best interest of the consumer, price and performance wise, and is just what benefits the bottom line of the corporation. So things like the Valerian are, in my opinion, very important to the industry. And I hope there's more of them because it furthers innovation. I think it's great. Not the Pro 2. I'm not happy with what it is. But the Valerian Max, it does great for the price point. Absolutely. The market is pushing into the area, though. I think things like new closed caption features are ways to keep that separation. Yeah. You got, as I said, you got to constantly innovate. You got to constantly push the envelope and offer new things in order to provide value. If you don't do this, where's your value? So you've got to constantly move forward and stay ahead. And that's MadVR's been able to do that. So some display manufacturers have been able to do that. I mean, a great example of this is what Christie is doing with Vader, variable dynamic range. They're doing, and what Barco in a different sense is doing with light steering. They're innovating. They're doing different things. And I think eventually you're going to see, though it was innovated and created for the commercial side of things, you're going to see trickle down. I mean, we're going to see variable dynamic range in residential. You're getting the trickle down already happening. Yes, it's on more expensive projectors, but it's already moved from commercial into residential. So that's that innovation benefits even the smaller consumer, even though it happened in the commercial space. I mean, GPS was a military application that is now everywhere in a residential and civilian sector. So innovation for a need or because of competition benefits everybody, in my opinion. Anything else? Nothing. Okay. Well, we'll leave it short. This was kind of a funny one. I don't know how it's going to be received by a lot of people because it was kind of a sales pitch. That's not wasn't my intent. I don't mean to, hey, let's go buy that's not what I'm meaning. It's I just want to showcase what they do. And if you find value in it or not, that's up to you. I just simply want people to be informed. That's it. I want people to know, have the knowledge in order to make informed decisions. It's basically the same thing as DAC and audio, focus on processing and most likely does it better than integrated product does. Um, I don't know. DACs have gotten really good. And while you may have a measurable difference, if you're looking at like somebody like Audio Science Review with a mirror on a DAC, that's a whole nother can of worms. So I've got a dedicated DAC. I've got an X Matrix X Saber Pro that's sitting on my desk. It's a Synod of 120, phenomenal DAC. I'm heavy into headphones. I've got many pairs. And I did it because of what I talked about earlier with knowing what I'm getting is the best. I've done the comparison, right? I've put an integrated DAC like with a Blue Sound or the one on the Storm or a Denon Marantz, all of these different ones, and put them in comparison to my X Saber. I can't hear the difference. But the psychological subconscious feeling of knowing what I am putting in is as close to what is coming out as possible is very freeing. It doesn't matter if I can hear the difference. It's freeing at a subconscious level because I know and I'm confident that it's not changing, regardless if there's a measurable difference. And I think that's important for people not to forget because people get caught up in the idea that, oh, you can't hear the difference. So what's the point? Psychology plays a huge part in this, huge part. And it's it cannot be understated how psychology manifests itself in how we feel in audio, video, and every part of our life. If you know and have confidence in what you're seeing or hearing is as close to the original as you can get, or not as original, but is it close to what is going into that system, you stop worrying about it. And it allows you to concentrate on the content itself instead of how it's being delivered. And people, enthusiasts especially, I think need to find ways to get themselves closer to that point. We're so caught up in the idea of equipment and how it's better or worse and how these measurements and stuff. And I think you've got to find the point, and I'm kind of rambling now, but you got to find the point of what gets you to AV nirvana. What allows you the freeing feeling to enjoy content instead of worrying about how it's being delivered. And if you can get there, content takes on a totally different meaning and feeling. So I challenge all of you to figure out how you can get to that. That should be the end. What it takes to get there is different for every person. My personal journey, I've talked about this on other streams, is I know on from my own experiences, if I take shortcuts, if I don't do things like the X Saber, my brain will wonder whether it's manifested in measurements or not. And I know that it's actually like I'm not going to hear the difference, but I still wonder, could it be better? And because I realize that, I know, do not shortcut something. Do not go here and spend less because it's good enough. And this is my own feeling. This is not how everybody feels. This is just what I've come to recognize about myself. This is the same with my Twitch streaming stuff that I used to do, my combat flight sim rig that sits behind me, any of my gaming stuff, music. I was a musician many years ago when I was doing that, cars, when I was into motorcycles, any of that stuff. It doesn't matter what it is. Tools, it does not matter. I have recognized about myself that it makes things more expensive, but it's just how my brain is wired. If I take a shortcut, I will be unhappy in some way, and it's going to happen. I'm going to spend more money shortly after that to get the one I originally wanted, and it's gonna cost me more money in the long run. I've just recognized about myself. And it's more expensive up front, but over the short course, it saves me a little bit money because I'm gonna do it anyway. It's a burden, but it's what I figured out. And I live with it because doing that, I know it doesn't get better. It gives me confidence in what I'm using, what I'm experiencing is the end. And that's freeing because I stop worrying about that thing. AV, tool, whatever. It doesn't matter what it is. I stop worrying about it. It's no longer a problem. It's gone. It doesn't occupy my brain any longer. So I encourage all of you in the AV space, figure out what it takes to get you to that point. If you are the person that it just takes good enough, that's great. That is not wrong. I cannot emphasize that enough. That is not wrong. It is simply different for every person. We are all wired differently. We are all culminations of our life experiences. So figuring out where that point is for you, getting there and enjoying that nirvanic feeling. That's what I want for all of you. And it is, at least with AV, sitting and watching movies. Oh man, it is so freeing. I love it. It's amazing. Amazing to have that feeling. So I'm going to get off my soapbox. We were on a couple of them today. Hopefully I didn't push any of you guys away, but Jonathan and I will be back next Thursday. I don't know what the next topic's going to be. I'll have to think about it. If you guys have any suggestions on topics, drop them into chat. Quick word about M-Wave before we wrap up. M-Wave, Trinov yesterday didn't officially announce, but pretty sure they're going to come. Storm, pretty sure they're going to come. JVC has announced. I also put, and I got to create some other pages for this, we're going to have a speaker comparison room. So we're bringing back the Lazy Susan so that people can figure out what type of speaker do I like? This is not a shootout. We're going to have a bunch of speakers, somewhere between 5 and 8 on a lazy Susan. What kind of speakers do I like? What kind of tweeter am I drawn to? Is there a certain manufacturer that I like? It doesn't matter which one you like. It's you just trying to figure out your own journey. So speakers, we're going to have subs doing the same thing. We're going to have amps. Can you hear a difference? I don't know. Historically, I have not been able to. We'll have speaker cables. And Jonathan said that he wants to do some stuff. He wants to do a room. I'm not sure what he wants to do. But there will be a lot of knowledge sharing going on at this year's M Wave. We're about just under 300 days, high 200s for days until M Wave. So if you guys have not gotten a ticket already, it is a show worth going to. It's going to be September 18th through the 20th, and it's going to arm you with the knowledge that you need to get to what we just talked about, your AV nirvana. So if you want more information on it, go to midwestavexperience.net. And it is a show that I think everyone here would very much enjoy. I enjoy putting it on. And I think it's definitely, if you want to meet other people in the home theater and AV space, if you want to form relationships, which is what M-Wave has always been about, M-Wave is the place to be. So we'll wrap it up there. If you guys have suggestions for future topics, drop them into the comments, not into chat, and we can use them into the future, and we'll go from there. The irony of worrying about a sales pitch while telling people to get AV Nirvana and don't buy more to keep chasing the next thing. I appreciate you trying to help us reach. That's fair. Don't buy more. I'm worried it's a sales pitch. Don't buy. It's self-conflicting because I know what I would want as a consumer. So I'm trying to be that, and I don't want to come across poorly. I just worry about that. So trying to be vulnerable. And I want this to be for you guys. So I want to know if that stuff if it's coming across that way. Because I care. Maybe too much sometimes. But if you guys have it, again, for the fourth time, if you have any suggestions on topics, drop it into comments, not into chat. And I will probably use one in the future. But until next time, stay safe stay safe. Enjoy those home theater journeys. It's going to be cold as hell here in the Midwest. So hopefully we'll be okay. We should. But I will see you guys probably next week. Have a good one. See you later.